Do you keep a gratitude art journal, or would you like some new, simple, fun prompts to fill your gratitude art journal? So in today's video, I'll be sharing a sneak peek into an online retreat where we explored the benefits of a gratitude art journal practice, as well as a really simple, fun, mixed media art making practice. And if you'd like to explore this gratitude feather and art journal practice further, I do have an online course linked below as well. But let's dive right in.
As I started my own gratitude practice about 5 years ago, and I decided to have an art component with it. And what I noticed was that when I was doing the art, and I was purposely not judging because I'm not an artist, I have a lot of stick figures. If I was able to let go of the judgment, it was so comforting just to be put into that state. Like it was just like the state of just sort of like me and a pencil and just very relaxing. Is that what you're saying basically? The mindfulness and where it's kind of giving you a space to just be you.
Yeah, I find that the practice can be a really beautiful container that gives us permission to express ourselves however we're feeling in the moment. And so the intention behind mindful art is often on the creative process, not on the final product.
Right.
So we're not trying to perfect something that we're going to put on the wall or try to sell and appease to someone else's expectations. It really is a gift for ourselves to give ourselves permission to just express. And I often say it's collaborating with chance, because I'm usually surprised by what comes out. And a lot of the people I work with are too. And I find it really freeing to have that permission to create whatever it is that needs to be expressed, and that's perfect exactly as it is, and we can hold and be with that.
It's a little intimidating. Do you have clients that feel that way, where you're just like, oh, I'm not an artist, I can't draw those stick figures? You don't, and you certainly don't, it's kind of putting yourself out there, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I find art making to be a really vulnerable process.
Yes.
And Brene Brown, who I love, she talks about how a lot of shame is tied to people when they're younger, if they're in elementary school or middle school, and how they're actually shamed for their art making, and that it can be really subtle, but that can stay with us. So I have heard from a lot of people say, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, oh, I couldn't make that. When I fully believe that we're all creative in our own way. And that might be, through drawing or painting, it might be through gardening or cooking.
Yes.
But what I really love is that a lot of artists also, or creatives, will get intimidated by having a blank page or a blank canvas and won't know where to begin or how to begin. So a lot of these practices with mindful art, there's quick little tricks and tools that we use to get us started without that judgment. So then we can kind of play and just explore, and again, take the pressure off, because it's not about appeasing to anybody else's standards. It really is just a gift for ourselves and our own self-care. So
Right.
Anybody, it's really simple and anybody can do it.
The thing on your website, and I just wrote down a bunch of things that really, really stuck out for me, self-care being one of them. How you're using arts, breathing, yoga for you think usually yoga and the breath work would definitely be self-care, but arts for self-care, I just love that. Mm-hmm. And also how to de-stress with intuitive art exercises, I just thought was just fabulous. Because I totally agree, once you get past that initial, I can't do the art, I just find it so relaxing, and it takes you just into this, just a deeper place that it's hard to access any other way, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I noticed also for myself and a lot of the people I work with that the inner critic can be really strong, and it can show up when we're trying to make art. It can show up when we're just doing our workout in the world. It can show up when we're connecting in relationships, sort of this internal judging that can happen.
Constant.
Hold us back from feeling more at ease and peaceful and really embracing ourselves. So a lot of the mindful art practices I offer as well help to embrace our inner critics. So there's a softening around that. So I just find it for myself and for people I work with, it's one of the most supportive ways that we can offer self-care that you might not normally think about usually.
Right. I love that. Softening. I love that. That's fantastic. And I'm thrilled you're here. So we're going to be doing the gratitude feathers. What sort of supplies should we make sure that we have with us like within the next few minutes?
So today you want to have basically a thicker art paper, so construction paper, cardstock, anything that's thicker paper. I just happen to have colored paper here. You can use different patterns as well. You want to be sure that you have glue sticks and scissors. And then if you have any magazine images or sort of collage images, scraps that are lying around, or a favorite magazine that you want to have near you, that you don't mind ripping into and cutting into, that can be really fun also. Or any drawing materials, so pens or markers.
What do you think is so magical about gratitude? Why gratitude? Why do you have that? Why are we doing the feathers? And like, what do you think gratitude opens up ourselves up to?
I'll speak from my own personal experience. I started a gratitude journaling practice several years ago. And many people have heard of this, just writing 3 things that you feel grateful for the day. And I noticed that it started to shift my awareness, where throughout the day I began looking for what I was grateful for. And so there's this positive, supportive shift that happens in our mindset just from setting the intention of being more aware of something we're grateful for. I love this particular practice because it combines that gratitude journaling and writing with mindfulness and with art. So it's sort of a triple whammy of love and wonderfulness. But they've done a lot of research that just a short practice of gratitude can actually rewire neurological pathways in our brains. We know that it can support us to be more positive in our lives. So it's wonderful. I'm happy to share it today. Without really thinking about it, you just want to choose, if you have different colors, you want to choose one that maybe is calling out to you a little bit more. So I'm feeling drawn to this purple color. And then you want to be sure you have something to draw with, so a pen or a marker. And so I'm going to use one here just as a visual cue. Now I have, with my online course, I have templates and I have really specific details, but since we're doing this far away from each other, we're just going to eyeball it. And so again, there's this permission to allow that it doesn't have to be perfect. So however you want to simulate this feather that you see here, or even an imagined feather that you have in your mind, we're just going to start tracing the outline. And we're tracing it because we're going to end up cutting this out. So one thing I like to recommend is, as you're making shapes, is to make them where you want to cut them later. So you don't want to have it so intricate that you're like, oh, that seems really laborious to cut it later on. So this is something that's going to be really quick, and we're also going to do the cutting fairly quick as well. So one thing I love about this practice and mindful art in general that I mentioned before is that we don't have to have art skills to do this. We don't have to have specific techniques. It doesn't have to be done a particular way. We're not trying to get a grade or to do it right or wrong. It really is something that we're giving ourselves as a gift to just be present and play. And that collaborating with chance, just being curious with what comes out. So you might want to approach it as, oh, that's an interesting feather. What a surprise. And then you can play with that. So now that we have this here, I do like to cut it out before we begin embellishing it. So you want to just take your scissors, and we're just following that trace and outline. And something else that I notice about mindful art as well is that there's this slowing down. So much of us are just on digital phones and devices. We're staring at screens all day. And these practices help us get back connected with our hand-eye coordination. There's a tactileness to it. There's also just hearing the sounds of the paper. So all of these things help us slow down and help us become more aware and attuned to the present moment. So I'm using scissors here, but for anyone, if you're noticing if it kind of bothers your wrists at all, you can also use X-Acto knives. And you just want to be sure you have like a newspaper or something beneath it so you're not cutting through your table. But that's something you can play around with later if you want to make more of these and you notice you want a little more freedom. And so we'll all complete these cuts at different paces, depends how many little side feathers you gave. And while we're doing this, since this doesn't take much focus to cut around the edges, I want to just plant the seed and make a suggestion for us to begin thinking about things that we're grateful for in our lives. So as we're cutting, you might just consider your day prior to coming here, how your day may have looked. It may have been really hectic and messy. It might have been gorgeous. Regardless of how your day unfolded, just trying to think of one small thing that you feel really grateful for. And I say small because sometimes it is really simple. It might be that you're grateful that you have sun coming through your window in the morning, or that you have a really sweet plant in your house or a pet. You might be grateful that you just have time and space to be here with us today. So making any last marks here. And then we'll broaden out also. I know you mentioned, Jules, kind of this feeling of, well, am I forcing this thought of what I'm grateful for? And I've heard people say, you know, fake it till you make it. And what I've noticed with the gratitude practice is that it really is like building a muscle. So the more you draw your awareness to focusing on what you're grateful for, the easier it then can become later. And I think what I've noticed for myself too is what I consider being worthy of what's something to be grateful for has expanded as well, because again, there's less judgment around that. So I've finished with my feather here, so I'm going to move on with some suggestions, but if you're still cutting, definitely continue cutting away there.
Can I ask you, Cynthia, just jump in here? Should I make sure, here's my feathers so far, should I make sure that all the marks are cut off?
So that's a good question. So you can, if you'd like. What I usually recommend is to just flip it over.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and then that way, especially if you're putting it in your journal, then it's something you won't see. I'm going to show a few different ways you can add to your feather and play. I like to offer doodling or organic shapes. If you don't already have a drawing practice, that can feel really nice to kind of step into. And what can also feel good is to make shapes or lines based on something you see around you. So you can see in this, just to show these images, this has a lot of sort of organic lines. I like to suggest looking around and noticing if you see any patterns in your space, anything that catches your attention that you feel really drawn to. And then you can play with the paper and see what it would be like if you made those shapes. And we're not trying to simulate or recreate those shapes. It's just kind of using that as a way to inform our visual expression. One other thing I love about these gratitude feathers is there's that element of play and curiosity. We have that tactile sensation. We're becoming more present and grounded. And then once we have more of our feather created, we're going to go through a few gratitude journaling prompts, some writing prompts. So we can really start to clarify and add some words and expression to what we're feeling right now in this moment. And then that may be what you decide to add to the gratitude feather. You might want to hold off and add a different quote. So that's definitely a personal preference. There's so many possibilities, which is why I really love this practice, because it can be different every time you come back to it.
Also, Cynthia, I just wanted to point out, I completely feel just what you were talking about, something with just like cutting out shapes, thinking about what to put on this feather. It's just like really like just helping me center. It's wonderful.
There is this sort of natural slowing down that can happen with a lot of these practices. Because we are starting to focus just on this one intention, this one practice, and then just again hearing those sounds, it automatically is a bit slower. So I'm happy to hear that that's your experience.
It's great.
My feather is looking quite robust with that. I have this beautiful purple maroon orchid that I just got yesterday at my art desk. I think it's probably influencing my my practice today. I love your flowers that you have also, Jules.
Thank you, Cynthia.
And so the writing that I showed on some of the other examples,
Yes.
you can write your quote or your gratitude phrase on the front or back. Again, it's entirely personal preference, so it would depend on the feather you make and what you're really wanting to see. If you are pasting it into your journal, you may want to either write the phrase on the front or next to your feather in your journal. That's another option if you have the space there. This can be a really sweet practice of gifting or collaborating with others. And you can also just gift them, which can be really sweet, especially if you're writing something you're grateful for about that person or about that connection or relationship. So I'm going to offer some gratitude journaling prompts. You're welcome to just finish the sentence and see whatever comes out for you. It's like free writing. We're not judging. We're just allowing whatever wants to come out to come out. This is totally for you, so you can allow yourself to feel uncensored. And if you feel stuck or if nothing comes up for you, I always like to offer the suggestion of writing, I have more to say, and just continually writing that. I have more to say, I have more to say, and inevitably something always comes out. If you want to write down something you're grateful for in the last week, we're going to move through this very quickly, and we'll spend only a minute or so on each prompt. And you can start with just I am grateful for. You can make a note that it's for the last week if you want. But again, this is just for you. So something you're grateful for in the last week, and writing that I have more to say if you feel stuck at all. And then we'll broaden that out, and beginning again, I am grateful for anything that comes up for you that you feel grateful for in the last month. One thing I always like to mention too is sometimes when we start reflecting on what we're grateful for, other thoughts can naturally come in. So you might start thinking about something that maybe didn't go the way you were hoping, or something that feels like a disappointment. And so leaving space for that, recognizing if those thoughts come in, and then just returning back to what's one small thing, even if you just have one thing you can think of in the last month that you can reflect on or write down. We're just shifting, and that's part of adjusting our neural pathways and how we're thinking about our lives and the world around us. So I just wanted to mention that because that is a really common experience for that to come up. And then we'll just broaden that out one more time and reflect on things that you feel grateful for in the last year. I'm writing down anything that comes up or comes to mind for you there. And then once that's feeling like you're coming to a close with it, I always like to suggest just looking over everything that you've written, noticing if you see any trends or patterns, if there's something that is coming up again and again that you are feeling grateful for. So it might be something, your relationships in your life, or something having to do with your home environment or your health or opportunities. So just noticing if you have any patterns or trends, and you might just make a note of that. And then what I love is not only reflecting on what you're grateful for, but why you feel grateful. And that's something that I notice can really help us to ground and really connect with that feeling of gratitude. So why do you feel grateful for those things? Do you feel safe or connected or loved? Are you feeling more expression, that you can really kind of create something new? Are you feeling appreciated? Why are you feeling grateful for that particular thing? Full permission to write whatever is on your heart on the front or back of your gratitude feather or in your journal. You can always re-embellish your gratitude feather. You can also just have a gratitude journaling practice. So maybe every day you're coming back and writing those 3 things you feel grateful for. So there's so much possibility. And there's no right or wrong way, which I love. And I always like recommending as well dating your gratitude feather, so either in your journal or on the front and back, because if you are coming back to this practice, it can be nice to have that as a marker of maybe how you were feeling or what was coming up in your life at that time.
Cynthia, that was absolutely amazing. That was just wonderful. I love the free writing that you added to that. Because again, that just I felt like this whole exercise, you just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. And by the time you're doing the free writing, I feel like your heart is so open at that point. It was very easy to access the things, the past week, the past month, and the past year. I was like I was going I was going a mile a minute. So I loved it, Cynthia. It was absolutely fantastic.
It's always really sweet for me to share this practice with other people, so I'm happy to introduce you to it and to everyone that's watching as well.
It's so special. You know, the other thing I love too is that then you have like these feathers. Like you were saying, you can either share them with people, give them to people, post them in your journal, which is what I'm going to do. They're just like these kind of special things you could put them by your nightstand to kind of remind yourself. And I always like having those reminders in the morning, you know, when you first wake up, to kind of get your mind right into the gratitude mode. And these would just be fantastic. Just, you know, and you can make different ones and just see them. And it's, you know, you pick it up and you feel it and you remember making it. It's a fantastic activity. Thank you so much.
Some of the people I work with, when they have a collection, will sort of pull out one a day, and since you put a sweet message on it, and it can be kind of your message that you're receiving for the day as a reminder of gratitude, or also just having them somewhere that you can see them. When you have multiples, you can also hang them from a stick and, you know, have them where you can.
I love that.
I hope you found this gratitude art journal practice inspiring, and please definitely comment below anything that you're currently feeling grateful for or what might have come up for you in the writing prompts. Also, please like this video. It lets me know that you want me to make more like this, and I look forward to seeing your own gratitude feathers if you join the e-course, and I will see you in the next video.